Is that right? Welcome, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I know we started half an hour later today, which might have thrown a few people. But yeah, Jen might end up disappearing off.
If I do, I'll still come on Zoom, but just laying down without my camera on.
Yeah, because it's about Lucia's bedtime now.
It's way past, given the clocks have changed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, clocks have changed, haven't they? So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. A quick housekeeping thing. We've got an online retreat next weekend. So that's from the Saturday to the Monday. We've got 3 guest speakers. We've got Dr. Dickon Bettinger, we've got Gabriella Maldonado Montano, and we've also got Linda Pettit. And those people we love dearly. So, and there's Jen and myself as well. So it's an online 3-day retreat. It's done via donation, which means basically give what you can afford. And we know that times are hard for some people at the moment, and what we ask for, if that's the case, please still come. Please come and find benefit, but please do something kind for somebody. That's what we ask. Pay it forward with an act of kindness if people are really struggling financially. I'm sure we can do something kind. Maybe just go and help somebody who needs some help, someplace or another, a group, or I don't know, get imaginative. So there's an online retreat next weekend. Details can be found on our website, along with the link for the Zoom meeting room, which will be the same one for the whole weekend. And also we have a retreat in Devon. Julie, what date is it again, love? That's Charlie as well, couldn't I?
17th, I think.
17th. 4 days in a beautiful house in Devon. We've got a couple of places left if anybody's interested in that. So there you go. Cool. Get in touch if you do. But tonight is community group. So Jen's just joining on from upstairs in the bedroom because she's taking Lucia to bed. And yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming. So I don't know if Jen wants to say anything. Jen, can you speak just now?
Yeah, I'll just welcome everyone. I'm going to try and get her settled and then I might come back down again. But I thought I could still listen and chip in because she will chill out in the dark a little bit better than when we're downstairs.
Have I missed anything?
I've only just turned it on actually.
No, I'm so professional. You'd have been amazed. Right. As per, we don't have anything lined up. So we're just open. It's an open conversation night. Anybody got any questions? Anybody want to share anything? Anybody wondering what the hell this is, still wondering what the hell this is all about? Anything. This is an open conversation tonight, and Jen and I and other people on this screen who I know who have seen some beautiful things will be chipping in, and we can all just guide each other and help each other. Jenny and I don't sit here as experts in any by any stretch of anybody's imagination. We've seen to the depth of life that we've seen and we continue to see, and we love sharing our understanding with people, but everybody has access to wisdom. So this is a space for talking. So if anybody's got any questions, anything they want to share, please feel free. Welcome back, Wen. That was a quick 10 minutes.
One of the things, Dave, I don't know if you want to talk about is you said what the insight you kind of had, I think it was either yesterday evening or this morning, about kind of getting lost in kind of negative thinking and just a story, and then what you kind of realized about how I can't really remember exactly what you said, but it appears more real than everyday life. Like it seemed like it had more weight to it. And then you said this thing just came to you. I can't remember the phrase. And you said it'd been quite powerful. So I know that was something that I've kind of been thinking about today. And I can't remember if you could, I don't know if you could then talk a bit more about that. And then I'll chip in.
Yeah, I certainly can. I just wanted to see if anybody wanted to say anything first, if anybody had any questions where they wanted to take tonight. But yeah, no, I certainly can talk about that, and I'm sure we will.
It's funny actually, Dave, because you go first, but I had something around, I didn't actually hear, someone was talking to me, so I didn't hear what Jen said about, I went into a crazy thought storm and saw something quite cool out of it. But you can go first.
No, you go first.
Oh, yours might be more interesting.
But it's not.
Okay, because then I've got another blooming pickup, so I'll be quick.
No, you go, because you got to pick up.
So what was quite cool is I saw this quote. There's a few quotes that just came to me, and one was something that Jack Pransky put on, a quote. It wasn't his, but he read it, and it was nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. And when you really sort of start to feel that quote, feel that meaning, it means when you do get completely stuck in some crazy thinking, it's not so scary, because you know that there's going to be learning in it. It's going to be teaching you something, and it's probably not going to go away until you've learned what you need to know. So what happened to me, it's about a month ago, someone said something, and I immediately went into that egoic state of, that's wrong, it shouldn't be that way. And immediately because I'm the pilot, because when I set my course on it shouldn't be that way, I'm basically, I'm right, they're wrong, and I'm in a place of judgment. And I then, because I'm the pilot and I've set myself in that direction, I then find the evidence for what I'm telling myself. I find all the evidence for why I'm right and other people are wrong. And I'm finding so much evidence, because that's the way we're designed. I look for the evidence and I find it. And so then I'm really just going off on one in my thinking. And I listened to this song, and she says, my head is a jungle. And it just felt like my head was a jungle. And it felt like it was like there were sort of, oh shoot, hang on a minute, just wait there, just a message from a child. Dad is on way. They can sort themselves out. Sorry, it felt like it was almost like my head is a jungle, and there were just tigers going round and round a tree. And it was just exhausting, all this thinking, I'm right, they're wrong, and just living this. And then I could see, I could see that I was holding on to it. And it's like, just got to let this go, Kate. You've got to let it go. So then another quote came to me, which is this song by Nick Mulvey, which is, the only way to hold on is to keep letting go. Because letting go, what it looked like was, okay, I won't really talk to these people. I don't need to talk to them anyway. I don't really see them, so it doesn't matter. So I'll just let go. But anyone can see that that's not letting go. It's like I've gone up the tree, the tigers are all going around the tree, and I've sort of gone up the tree, but I'm still just completely in it. I'm in this complete thought storm because I'm still right. So I'm letting go, but I'm right. So I'm not letting go at all. But I feel that I'm letting go, but I could see that I'm not. So anyway, then I was explaining to someone about, I was working with someone, and I'd read this quote I have a lot of quotes tonight, by Linda Pransky. Linda Pransky? Yeah, and she'd said, it's in the feeling of humility that we're released from an experience. And I was talking to someone about this, and And I was sort of saying that humility is not thinking less of yourself, because why would you think less of yourself? You're amazing. It's thinking about yourself less. And as I'm explaining it to her, I started to feel the truth of this. Like, I think I've been asking, I don't know who I'm asking, but I'm just asking to understand, to feel the meaning behind you're not your experience. And this, I think, was what was going on. I started to feel the truth behind being released from an experience, with when you start to feel humility. So when you are not putting yourself in the center of the experience, it was almost like I was sucked off the stage and I found myself in the audience, and I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to let anything go. There was nothing to let go, because I just felt it was such a huge relief, because all the judgment had gone. I was just feeling this just completely in space, just compassion. I could see everything from their point of view, from my, it didn't matter, because I wasn't in the center of it anymore. It was just like watching it. It was like the tigers going around the tree and then me being up the tree. It was like it was a picture from a children's book, and I was like holding it, I was reading it. But it definitely, it came from this feeling. And this is where, when people are talking about the principles, and they're trying to understand it and they're trying to work it out, it's always going to be coming from allowing seeds to grow, and a feeling to grow within you, like a truth that just grows within you. And then it's not a tool, it's not something that you have to do, because anyone who's trying to let go or to manipulate thought or to let go of thought, those tigers in the jungle, it's good luck, because it's not, if you still think you're right, it's not that easy. Well, you don't need to, because the whole point of this was seeing that when you feel the truth of this, like when you feel the truth of humility, for example, that you're not the center of everyone else's reality, then I didn't have to let go of anything. I was released. And it's such a different thing to be released from an experience that you're having, or released, and the relief is huge. But you don't actually know, like I couldn't see while I was in it, I couldn't see that I was doing any of it. It's only when I was sort of released from it that I could see it all. And that all came from this feeling of humility. And then everything else just took care of itself. And so I don't know if that's got anything to do with what you were going to talk about.
I loved what you said then. I loved what you spoke about humility. Humility isn't seeing yourself as something, paraphrasing now, anything less than awesome. But it's not putting yourself in the center of the circumstance. Some words to those effect. What did you actually say?
So say that again.
Said something like humility isn't.
Oh, because sometimes when you talk about humility, so the two things. So humility isn't thinking less of yourself; it's thinking about yourself less.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. There's something you started with as well, that nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. In some traditions, they call this karma. And I think karma's been misunderstood in our culture compared to what like the Buddhists and the Hindus talk about it as. In our culture, we've tend to have seen it as being a bit of a punishment or a reward system, a punishment or a reward system. But I think when I've listened to like Hindus and Buddhists talk about karma, they've really spoken about that point that Kate made right at the beginning. Nothing ever really goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. You know, and it is, we what I love about Sid's message is the simplicity and the truth behind it. I know there's people on this screen right now who are having a hard time. And the only reason why I do this work is because I've been there. I've had a hard time. I've been suicidal. I've thought I'm useless. I've thought I'm not worthy of my own existence. I've been deeply insecure. I fought the world. I fought people. I fought myself. I've been a victim. I've done all that. I've turned to alcohol. I've turned to drugs to sort my life out. And none of it ever went away. Not until I learned something new. And it's the only way out. The only way out of it isn't by continually staring at the same old shit. It's not through studying anything that we've previously experienced. I love the saying, the devil's in the details. You might hear me say that on many weeks. The devil's in the details. Everybody's always looking at the details. Both Jenny and I had profound shifts through the work of Sydney Banks, which has then meant that we got to meet Kate through this. Kate came and saw us one day, and Kate herself got to have a shift. And there's people on this, Charlie, like, and Julie on here, and Ali, who've come along and they've had shifts. And I know everybody else on here, Wendy and Deb and Caroline and Leela, we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat, but we all think we're on separate boats. But we're actually all in the same boat. But we live our lives as though we're all on separate boats. And it's a very isolating place to be, is this misunderstanding of the nature of life. You see, mainstream psychology is always studying what life's doing. Whereas Sid came along and said, guess what life is? Now, I couldn't answer that question at that time. And in words, I can't answer it to this day. I certainly have a feel for it compared to how I used to experience life. A very different feel for it. I learned something that killed my karma in a moment, or an awful lot of it. In a moment, I experienced death. In 2013. And it was a profound shift. Wasn't ever anything to fear. But all the things that plagued me and troubled me left. But nothing goes away until it taught us what we need to know. Now, I myself found that space by hitting rock bottom. My rock bottom, mine. My sister found that space when she was absolutely fine. It's got nothing to do with hitting rock bottom. It's got nothing to do with what state of being we're in. It's got everything to do with the realization that takes place in any given moment. A realization that takes place in any given moment. And it can happen for absolutely everybody on earth, because everybody on earth is in the same boat. We're all on the same boat. One of the things that came to me this morning, I had a bit of a rough day yesterday. I had a very strange day yesterday. I was doing some tree work, and anybody who knows me knows that I don't like cutting trees anymore, but it was family and it was just a hedge, they were saying. I was like, oh, right, okay then. And I hated doing this job. I hated it. And in the end, I was in such a bad mood doing it, I stuck the chainsaw in my leg. But thankfully, I was wearing my chainsaw pants and it stopped the chain dead. If it had gone that much around the inside of my leg, it would have hit me thigh. That was lucky. And with that, I just said, nah, fuck this, I'm getting out. And I went home. And I struggled with myself all day yesterday. I had a really heavy day. So much stuff was coming up. I sat in the bath and I was just sat in stillness, just this vacant stillness of just what felt like grief, I suppose. I suppose it felt like grief. I felt like I'd really let my family down. And all of a sudden up pops this little thing. It just said, I don't want to be bullied. It's like, what the fuck was that? I don't want to be bullied. And I realized this was like an aspect of myself that I carry around, a feeling of unworthiness that I carry around. Probably stemming back from when I was at school and some kids did bully me a bit, and I wasn't overly bullied, but I was bullied a wee bit, and it really wasn't nice. It was horrible. Which is probably why I started to look at the tough guys and think, well, they're safe, I'm going to have to be hard. And over my life, I turned myself into a hard man and landed myself in prison and all kinds of stupidity and insecurity, all born out of insecurity. And over the course of that day, I went into all kinds of bizarre, low feeling states. And when I woke up this morning, I felt very, very different. It had left. But there was something that came to me whilst I was just in the kitchen, and we tend to feel that these feelings of low, desperation, depression, isolation, nobody understands us, that somehow they're more truthful or honest than feelings of happiness and joy. We tend to think that they're more realistic. They're real world shit. They're real world feelings. And what struck me this morning was, I am somebody who's in a position to have, and I'm thankful, I'm eternally thankful that took place in 2013. Two events took place in 2013 that showed me how reality is created. And it was so simple, changed my life. You see, when I say that, it's like, when I'm talking about reality and experience are exactly the same thing. No matter what reality we are facing, it is an experience. Our experience. So everybody's in the same boat. We all experience reality. We experience reality. Hear the statement, we experience reality. Of course we do. We experience reality. Reality and experience are the same thing. Now, this has been proven by quantum physics. The material world is a manifestation of consciousness that is collapsed in the moment by the witness. Who's the witness? Consciousness. Whose consciousness? Everyone. Everything. Everything's in the same boat. Rusty is pure consciousness. We're all pure consciousness. You could get pedantic and you can say that the cup here is pure consciousness, but it is pure consciousness. Because everything is consciousness. And this is where all our problems stem from, is our feeling of isolation and separation from the whole and ourself being the whole. Deep down within every single one of us who's suffering, we know there's better. That's why we're so pissed off about it. We know we could be having a nicer life. I knew full well yesterday I could be having a nicer life. I couldn't find it in that moment. But I did. It came to. One of the things that experience in 2013 didn't do was create an anesthetic for life. It didn't do that. But it was never about having an anesthetic to life. It was about living. Living for this finite amount of time on planet Earth. That's what it's all about. For this short amount of time. That can feel like millennia when we're not in a good place. And can feel like seconds when we're really enjoying ourselves. That's why Einstein said time is relative. That's what he's talking about. Because it's in the eye of the beholder is time. Because it's created within our mind, as is all reality. Many people don't understand this point or see the magnitude or the relevance of it. We create the entirety of our reality. We create it. I created all my depression. I created all my suffering. I created all my anger. I created all my resentments. I created all my hatred, all my racism that I used to hold. I created my past. I created my future. With thought. Thought. That amazing force called thought. This thought stuff has been widely misused by humanity. For some reason, humanity is a species that lives with an awful lot of ego. Ego, what is ego? When I talk about ego, what I'm talking about is an idea of separation from the whole. A belief that we are all separate from one another, separate from nature, separate from the universe, separate from whatever anybody wants to call the creative source. Separate from that. Now, this source stuff, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. It's the source. Everything is made of it. Because it's the source. Now, that source must exist. Think about it logically. This force must exist. In quantum physics, they call it the unifying field. So this is known to science. This source is known to science, what they call source in Hinduism, or perhaps God in Christianity, or Allah in Islam, or Buddha mind in Buddhism. Sid called it divine mind. Quantum physics, they call it the unifying field. It's known to physics, it's known to religion. It's a truth, it's a fundamental fact. It has to exist because otherwise nothing exists. There must be something that created everything. And if it created everything, then everything is created from it. Which means something very special. Everything is it. Like waves on an ocean are all created from ocean. But each look as though they're separate little identities, or perhaps big, great identities, or perhaps tiny little identities as ripples. Tsunamis and ripples are all ocean. Somewhere down the line, humanity in its ignorance, forgot this point. Perhaps it didn't see it as relevant. It's absolutely vital. Because it's only when we start to tap into the state of who we truly are, what we truly are, does the story of the ego collapse. And the story of the ego is where all suffering is born and dies. People think that the suffering that they experience is some kind of physical ailment. We call it diseases. Got psychological diseases, psychological illness. No, that's totally misunderstood, and that's coming from people who are looking at Newtonian science when in actual fact it's a quantum universe. And they hold on to that Newtonian science when in actual fact it's a quantum universe. We've got to start looking deeper. We've got to start asking deeper questions if we want change in our lives. If we genuinely don't want change in our lives, don't carry on. Everybody's free. Everybody's free to live however they choose. And it is choice. But people don't understand that. It is choice. But I wouldn't choose this, Dave. But nobody else is creating it for us. Nobody else was creating my suffering yesterday. Nobody could create that for me. Nobody can create my experience of life. Nobody can create my reality. It is my free mind that dreams up thoughts, which in turn create feelings and realistic looking experience, including the idea that I'm a separate little being on my own little boat, getting tossed around on an ocean that doesn't care. The reality of that is so far from the truth. Everything is made of the same thing. Everybody is made of the same thing. Everybody is the same thing. Everything is the same thing. Everybody is source energy. Source energy, the unifying field, love. That statement can really piss people off. Everything is made of love. How can you? That makes no sense, Dave. Love's a feeling. Love's a human feeling. No, it's not. That's such a shallow feeling or understanding of love. Love is the cohesive order of everything. It is the divine state of who and what we truly are. It's why we all seek it. It's why we all seek perfection and happiness within ourselves. Because we know fine well it exists. But we keep looking in the wrong place. We keep looking at yesterday or this morning or 10 years ago or when I was a kid. Because back in those days, we created a story. Like I did when I was a child, I created a story of being bullied. I didn't like it. And I wanted to be different. In fact, I wanted to be the bully. Because at least they're safe. I didn't realize the bullies were born out of pure insecurity. The only thing that set me free was the realization that there is nothing wrong with me, bar the way I think about myself and the world, my ego. There's nothing wrong with me. I was perfect. I was kind and I was loving towards other people. Except for when I experienced the beliefs of my age-old programming. And yesterday when I was in the kitchen, it struck me. It's funny. I was taking yesterday as being something that my feeling state yesterday as being something I really needed to work through and work out. I needed to figure it all out. Devil's in the details. It looks so complicated. Hell's in the details. It was so complicated, and it was hell on earth. And this morning I stood there in the kitchen and I realized the worse I feel, the further away from the truth of who I truly am, I am actually experiencing. The deeper suffering I feel, the more divided I am in my mind. The worse I feel, the more bought into the illusion of life, separation, on my own little boat I am. The worse I feel, the further away I have gone within my mind from who I truly am. The more suffering I experience, the more in the false I find myself. The more suffering I feel, more in the false I am actually living. I'm further away from my true natural state. I'm more bought into my ego than my true natural state. And again, it was back to simplicity. And the moment it hit me, I was just filled with this feeling of loving warmth. As I said it just then, I felt it again. There's nothing wrong with anybody. We're just lost in stories that we hold on to. We think we are our identity of thoughts. We're not an identity of thoughts. I liken that to an ocean mistaken in itself for waves. No, the waves come from the ocean. The waves cannot create the ocean. Only the ocean can create the waves. But we live our lives as though the waves are creating an ocean. We're so identified with our illusory self, our thought creation, our memories, and our feelings. We think that's who and what we truly are. But that's nonsense. How can that possibly be? Because if that was true, then surely from the moment we were born, being who and what we truly are, we would have to experience that for our entire existence, and nothing could change. Wouldn't that have to be the case? Because it would be who we are. But we know that's not true. So it can't be who we are. That must just be the waves on the ocean of our own being that we're simply mistaking ourselves for, getting lost in the waves, getting lost in the surface layer of ourself, not realizing the depth and the magnitude and the stillness that exists as we descend through the water column of ourself. To the total wholeness, to look up and to realize that everybody is doing this too. They're all in the same boat. This is why there's arguments on planet Earth. If reality was real, if my reality was real, I would never fall out with anybody. I'd never disagree. I would never cast a single judgment. But bugger me, do I cast some judgments. Till I catch myself, realize this point. Oh, other people's realities look very real to them as well. They make no sense to me, but I know they look real to them. That's why they do what they do, because their realities look real and they don't know. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Separation never took place, ever. Our separation from the divine source of all things has never taken place. It's not happened once, ever in the history of time. Not once. There's just been lostness in thought. Thoughts. Beliefs. Which is why Jesus, sorry, let's go on mute, look. Which is why Jesus said that statement, it is done unto you as you believe. He was trying to tell us about reality. It is done unto you as you believe. However you believe yourself to be, whatever you think about yourself, you will experience that as a reality. It will manifest, because thought is the source of reality. Which is why Hindus and Buddhists, and Sid Banks called it divine mind, the mind of God. Universal mind. This universe is thought into existence. It's dreamt into being as an experience. Think about your dreams. Your dreams are an experience. You experience your dreams. They're realities. Many of them as real as this very moment now. You're safely tucked up in bed. Some people are afraid to go to sleep because they have nightmares. Some people can't wait to go to sleep to relieve themselves from the nightmare of their daydreams. Either way, it's all an experience. Because that's what reality really is. That's what life is. What is life? It's an experience. A never-ending experience. This is where people go, oh God, I'm stuck with the same old shit for the rest of it, for eternity. No, you're not. If you believe that, that is exactly what you're going to receive, because that's what you think, and your thoughts create your reality. They create your experience. But when somebody wakes up and they realize the magnitude of this point, everything is a thought. Every word, every action, every object is a thought creation. You can't say this pen's thought, Dave. I only know it's there because of thought. I create its identity. I decide whether I like it or not. You ask a quantum physicist and they'll say, no, you create this by collapsing infinite potentials into a singular potential via consciousness. How does that work, quantum scientist? Don't know. We're amazing, phenomenal, divine creator in human form, playing the game that we're separate from the whole. When we're not. We are the infinite potential. I'm not infinite potential. Do you think? Oh no, Adobe, bugger off. Do you think? Well, yeah, of course I think. Have you ever come to the end of thought? Not yet. Do you think you could possibly come to the end of thought? Is it possible to eventually run out of thoughts? I don't think so. That must make us infinite, surely. That must make us the infinity of the ocean. No beginning, no end. There isn't the beginning or an end to the seas, to the water that exists on this earth. There's no beginning or end. Which must mean that we are the infinite. Mistaking ourselves for what we create or collapse out of the infinite. Thoughts, beliefs, our history. Our history is a thought. The past doesn't exist anywhere on the face of planet Earth. It doesn't exist anywhere. There's only the now. So what is the past? The past is a thought. Same as the future. I had a lovely talk with Julie once, going for a walk with Julie here. And she was telling us about one of her little worries she has. And I remember saying to her, did you know it's impossible to worry about the future? Hiya, mate, welcome. Did you know it's impossible to worry about the future? Looking a little bit perplexed. Explained to Julie, it doesn't exist. It's impossible to worry about something that doesn't actually exist because it doesn't exist to worry about. So you can't worry about it because it doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist to worry about. So therefore it's impossible to worry about it. But people have the experience of worrying about the future. So how does that really come about? If you really look closely, what you'll see is when you're worrying about a future, what you're truly worrying about, or what's really truly scaring you, should I say, is actually an image or a storyline that you've created. About what you perceive to be the future. You're actually afraid of a thought. It might be a sentence. It might be a picture. An imaginary picture of how this scenario is going to look. Look closely at your worries. And you'll see that's actually what's going on. You're worrying about a thought now. And it's the only way this works. This is what reality is created from. It's created from within. All our anxieties, our thoughts, all our worries, our thoughts, what people call mental illness. Take away thought from mental illness. What you're left with? Well, there's nothing to drive somebody mad. Therefore, it must be thought. I couldn't imagine my life without my anxieties and my worries and my depressions. Like when I used to drink and I couldn't imagine my life without alcohol, or I used to smoke and I couldn't imagine my life without tobacco, or drugs for that matter. I wanted to split up with a girlfriend, I was splitting up with a girlfriend, or a girlfriend was leaving me, and I couldn't imagine my life without that person in my life. I carried that same thinking towards depression, anxiety, worries, anger. Who am I without this, though? I'm me but happy. I'm me but peaceful. I'm me but content. Because that's our natural state. I'm me but insightful. I'm me but make wise choices. Same as everybody. Same as everybody on earth. From the beginning of time. Because we're all in the same boat. We're all of the same ocean. We may look very different. Of course we look different. Why would nature create two identical of anything? When it could have the experience of infinite. Nothing goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. Yep. My pain taught me I was perfect. My pain taught me that everybody's perfect. My anxiety taught me that I was kind. My anger showed me that I was loving. All these false selves that I lived out of eventually showed me who and what I actually truly was. When I realized I'm not that. And I could never have been that, because if I had been that, surely I must have been born as it. And I wasn't. I was a happy kid most of the time. Just misunderstood reality throughout time. Misunderstood that reality was created from within my being. When I say my being, I'm not talking about my body. I'm talking about the force of life that animates my body. Tells my body what to do, to release which chemicals when. There was never a chemical imbalance in my body. If there was, it was a thought imbalance. My thought was imbalanced and biased towards the negative, or what I perceived to be negative. And I thought they were more real, more true, more realistic than the positive thoughts. I was lost. Our separation from the whole, from the God source, from self, true self, has never, ever, ever taken place. It's all an illusion. It's all an illusion. We're all already free. We're all already perfect. We're all already joy. We're all already happiness. We're all already fulfillment. We're already creative, inspired beings. All of us already. We're already it. That's why Sid said, I think he was quoting somebody else when he said, I am that I seek. I am that happiness. I am that joy. Because it's what's left when those negative thoughts are seen for what they are. Just thoughts. Why is one thought more real than any other thought? How many thoughts have you had today? Have you acted on every single one? Probably not. Why not? Why did you act on the ones that you acted on? Why did you believe some thoughts over other thoughts? The whole game is thought. The whole game of reality is thought. Does anybody want to say?
I'll just say, Dave, one of the things that occurred to me when you're speaking is also like just that total innocence in it. Because like I was saying to you today, watching Lucia create kind of ideas, concepts, likes and dislikes, she gets more frustrated now if something's taken from her. And you see how we're kind of born into this world and we can't help but create. And we create ideas and character and ego. And it's the most natural thing that happens. We start to feel separate from the whole. We start to feel like we are this being. And I think sometimes we take it all quite seriously, or people can hear this kind of thought created reality, thought created. We're living in thought, and we kind of take responsibility for it in a way that feels really heavy. Whereas I think seeing a baby turning into this little character, you see the total innocence, and that's all of us. But whatever we create has just been because we didn't know any different. And some stuff that we create, we kind of question and drop, and some stuff we create, we hold on to. But you can see why Sid said it's done in innocence. And not only Sid, many people have spoken throughout time. It's not a judgment thing. And I don't know, I think for me, it's been one of the most incredible experiences to watch Lucia go from being this like almost this wide open space, it would seem like, just observing life as is, to now like totally interacting. And I'd given her, she was holding a box of something I bought her earlier in the car, and I just phoned my mum. I turned around and she's eaten the corner off this box, and I'm having to get bits of cardboard out of her mouth, and she's furious with me for taking away the box. And it's so strange because it's like it's new in the last few months really, that she's starting to get, if you take something from her, she gets cross, and that she's enjoying it, whatever goes on for her. And I don't know, I think that I haven't had any feeling of judgment for her in terms of she shouldn't be doing that, or she shouldn't get upset, but as we get older, we kind of, I don't know, I judge adults a lot. I don't see the innocence in their behaviour and things that they do sometimes. But it's like, it's realising we all started out the same. We all started out as this like space, this potential. And then, this mind creates, and we get lost in the creation. And then I feel like there's conversations like this and many others that we come to, and it's almost like we start to remember that space again. We get to remember. And I feel like since coming across the principles, I've gone more back to that childlike state, that open state, and less identified with the creations. But it's just something that really struck me today, with just the total innocence in it all, in every single person, being. It's done in innocence. And I think it's pretty humbling when we get to see it's so, doing this work is incredible because we'll work with someone and it can be so obvious to us, wow, they're so lost in story, that's the only thing taking them out of the moment of who they really are. But then we've got our own stories that we get totally lost in, and I think Dave and I always make sure to share those, because we would never want someone to think that somehow you learn about principles and you start having insight and it makes you immune from the lostness. Like, we're here having an experience as an individual. That in itself is false, in that there is just that one nature, that one mind. So we can't step out of that, but we get to kind of get a feel for the truth. And like Dave was saying, you get a feel for what takes you further away from that. And that's going to be for the rest of our lives. We just get to learn and grow and observe. And so, yeah, I just wanted to add that, Dave.
I like it when you call it unlearning.
Say again?
I like it when you call it unlearning.
Unlearning, yeah.
That's what we're doing. We're all in this conversation now, learning.
Well, that was one of the things I realised, is Lucia's getting more frustrated and less kind of, I mean, she's amazing. She's a very content baby, but you see the frustration, the more she's learning. She's learning about life, and the more concept she gets, the more dissatisfaction, and she's getting to experience, and it's not a problem. But again, that's like you see, it's not a problem.
No.
Just experiencing, and but when there was no concept and no kind of, she used to just, it was almost like watching this dreamy kind of just space. It was amazing. But it is that kind of, it's everything that we think that we know, the devil's in the details, that creates the suffering. And the more that she thinks she knows, the more that, and it's going to create suffering, but that seems to be part of this experience of life, because we are alive and we are having an experience. And I don't know, I think we view suffering as a negative thing, whereas I'm kind of watching her, I'm like, no, she's just kind of learning and creating. And I don't kind of think that when she's happy and smiling, that's her doing life right. I see all of it as right. Her getting totally frustrated and like screechy with me earlier because I took a box off her that I know isn't good for her to eat, but she thought maybe she'd give it a go. So I do think just that thing of, wow, it's everything that we've learned that we think keeps us safe or makes us who we are that creates the suffering.
That's right. We think our knowledge keeps us safe. We think our identity, Jen just unmuted it for some reason. We think our identity keeps us safe. We think that our closing our hearts is like our protection. We don't realize it's the root cause of all our suffering. Wendy, thanks for that, Jen.
Hi. Couple things come to mind in that there's some wisdom from one of the wisdom books, which is called the Bible, that says iron sharpens iron. Now, I've not necessarily had an iron object scrape across my skin, but I imagine it hurts. I imagine it's not comfortable, but yet the process of life is one in which we need to bump up against hard things and make and help to form ourselves, you have to let Lucia crawl around and fall on her bum. She's not going to figure out how to walk unless she falls on her bum a few times. But if you try to protect her, or if I try to protect myself from negative things or hard things or whatever, how am I ever going to learn anything? It's baked into the process of life. I don't know what it feels like to be a caterpillar and make myself a cocoon and then get turned into mush and then grow some, wings and be squeezed out of that, right? I don't know what that feels like, but I know that that's required in order to be a beautiful butterfly, is to turn to mush. So there's something very interesting about us. I was just going to say North Americans, but what am I trying to say? Western civilization people, that we have been conditioned to, we've been conditioned to hope and pray that we don't bump up against life and hurt and experience difficulties. That's kind of like there's a bargain chip in there. But yet we talk out of two sides of our mouth, right? Because, you say to your teenager, how are you going to learn? You got to get out there, you got to get out and do it. We do push some of us sometimes to, how are you going to learn how to ice skate? You got to fall a few times. It's just part of it, and we accept that. But there are other times where we're like so self-protective. So, and I don't know if this is true, and forgive me if you've heard me say this before, because I say it often on calls like this because it's so helpful for me, is that I don't know again if this is true, but it sounds good, so I like it. But that Hispanic cultures, if something difficult comes, like somebody says, I just got diagnosed with cancer, a person in a Hispanic culture might pray, dear God, please give me a back strong enough to withstand this difficulty that I'm undergoing. Give me everything that I need to keep walking. Whereas somebody in my neck of the woods would say, dear God, I just got diagnosed with cancer. Please heal it. Please cure it. Please take it away. So that orientation to life of everything, and like what Jen said beautifully about, your daughter, like, yeah, she's frustrated. Like, why can't I make this thing come into my mouth straight? Why can't, why does it taste awful once I get it there? Why can't I walk across the room? It's frustrating because she wants what she wants, but how else is she? It's part of life. And it's just so interesting how we have that, what Sid and this whole understanding is about seems so new and exciting and innovative and like, wow, but it's been the way that we've always operated forever and a day. But our little faces were turned away from natural life to unnatural life. And that's what we've gotten used to. That's what we think that we're supposed to be doing, is the unnatural thing. And so it's basically reminding us of what we already know. This whole conversation is reminding us about what we know. And that's why I think, for me, why my mind settles and quiets when I'm in this conversation, literally, like in a moment like this, or because it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, forgot, got all worked up. That's right. And it does, and things just don't bother me like they used to. They just don't. And that's because I was trained to get twitchy. I was trained to react. I was trained to not like discomfort. And it's just not the way it works. Just not the way it works. Thanks.
Thank you, Wind. Love it when you speak. You will share such beautiful things. It's the innocence. Jen said it, our innocence. One of the stories I loved about Sid Banks was apparently he went into a prison. I wasn't there, but I've been told. And he went into a prison, and word got around all the local prisons that Sydney Banks was coming to talk in a prison, and other prison staff turned up at this prison, and it was packed with staff, and it was packed with prison inmates, all the same. And Sid sat at the front. First of all, apparently Jen's going to totally correct me on this. He walked in, and the lady who was running the this event couldn't find Sid when it was his time to go on. And where she did find him, he was up against a wall and he was crying. And she said, "What's wrong, Sid?" And he said, "This is how we treat our most vulnerable people. There's nothing humane about this place whatsoever." And then he sat at the front. Did I get that right, Jen?
She's rocking the baby. Oh,
I'm guessing that. Anybody else getting feedback?
I said right enough, and I'll turn it off.
Right. And he sat at the front, and apparently he just waved his arm. And he just said, "You're all innocent."
hmm.
He was speaking to both the staff and the inmates. He was speaking to everybody. Everybody's innocent. Forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do. People get caught up in realities that they've created, but they don't know they're creating it. They think it's something separate from themselves other than their own thoughts. The identity of themselves, their personality, they think is something separate from their thoughts. Their aspirations, their desires, they think is something separate from their thoughts. Their history, they think that's something separate from their thoughts. Now, I'm not saying what happened in the past didn't happen. Yeah, it certainly happened, I'm sure. But it's now just a load of memories. It's a bunch of stale thoughts. And I was thinking, Jen, as you were speaking, I was thinking about a time when I was really having a hard time. I was having a hard time, but there was times when I really wasn't during this hard time. And I remember going to my mum and dad's Ruby wedding anniversary, went out for this lovely meal, and I wasn't in a bad space. But I wanted my mum and dad to think that I was, so I didn't look like a fraud. So when I was in a good space at my mum and dad's, my own mum and dad's Ruby wedding anniversary, I acted all depressed and miserable, even though I wasn't. Because I was so afraid of what they would think about me if I was to suddenly start looking happy. Would they think I was a fraud? There's nothing wrong with Dave. I really wanted people to think there was something wrong with me. It wasn't my fault. Like I'd try and summon up pain sometimes when I actually wasn't feeling it, in order to try and look like I was genuinely, there was genuinely something wrong with me. Because I was afraid that people would think that I was a fraud. I backed myself into a corner. I backed my ego, backed me into a corner. Where I felt like I daren't let myself be happy because I'd created an identity around being a depressed, angry man. I look back and I can see the stupidity of that. Because I thought to myself at the time, I thought, well, you know, if I act happy now, then people are going to think that I'm a fraud for all the suffering that I've done, all the stupid shit that I've done, all the things I've said, and all this, all that. People are going to think that I'm a fraud. I didn't realize they'd actually be really happy that I was happy, because I'm no longer a miserable bastard to be around. I had no idea. I look back and I can have such judgment of myself for ruining my own mum and dad's Ruby wedding anniversary. So even though I wasn't feeling bad, I made myself feel bad to keep up an act. But I was innocent. I was innocent. I didn't know any better in that time. It's what looked like made sense to me in that moment. My fear. Wendy, you got your hand up, love.
When you told that story about Sid, I got a bit choked up because it reminded me of a little over, just a little under a week ago, my 30-year-old stepson took a huge step forward in his life, and he had made arrangements to go to a detox for drugs and alcohol. There hasn't been a day since he was 14 where he hasn't had alcohol in his system and or cannabis in some way, smoked it, ate it, whatever. And so for years he was like, oh, I enjoy drinking, it's fun, it's good, and whatever. Anyway, so he's gotten to a point where he was just like, I need to figure this out. So he went to this detox, and he was there about 32 hours and then called us to come get him, because he was supposed to be about a week in the detox and then go to a rehabilitation program for a few weeks to whatever. So I've been an alcoholic for a number of years. I've known a lot of alcoholics in my life, and going into detox 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 times is kind of, that's the way of the world a lot of times before people can put it down. This is just in this, you understand, this is, I'm just talking about a particular thing. I know that sometimes when you are understanding of this understanding, you don't even need to do that, but that aside. So he was in there for about 32 hours or whatever, and wanted to come home. And my husband handed me the phone because I have a little bit more experience with this world of detox and alcoholism and stuff. So he said, these people here are awful. I'm in a room with another gentleman who screams all night because he's detoxing from opioids or crystal meth, something. They say that in order for me to get a cigarette break, I have to do these 5 things. And I did 4 things, and they wouldn't give me the cigarettes. And they seem to enjoy keeping my cigarettes away from me. They're just mean. It's awful. I feel like I'm in prison and I want to go home. So in my head, part of me said, oh, could you please stick it through a little bit longer? You just need a few more days away from the substances to kind of clear your neurons a little bit. And then another part of me said, I believe you. I don't believe you about the content. I believe that you know what's best to get out of there. So I said, unfortunately, the car is being taken up tomorrow. We cannot go to where you are to get you. So he made arrangements for somebody else to come get him. But he really went into detail with his dad about how awful it was. And he said, Dad, he said, you know the movie Scared Straight? I'm never going back into one of those places again. I'm never drinking alcohol again for the rest of my life. I'm done. That was awful. I'm not doing it again. And I need my life back. Now, I have no idea what today or the future is going to hold. But his own ability to say, this is my words, an inhuman place. I think he was like Sid, leaning up against a wall, crying, saying, this is no place for me, a vulnerable person, and anybody else in this place. This is not right. This is not good. And I have the ability to get myself out of it. Maybe you people want to stay, but I'm going. And so that was really what you just shared about Sid was really touching, and kind of even made it was settled for me, but it really kind of settled it a bit more, that I'm really trusting. My son's name is Karan. I'm trusting Karan's ability to take care of himself and to go in a direction that's right for him, to be a man of dignity and a man that can live day to day without torment. So thanks for sharing that. That was really powerful.
Thanks, Wayne, love. Send him love and wish him all the best. We can all have change, because it is our truest state of being is change. It's the truest order of the physical. Being in form is change. Nobody's static. Nobody is the same person. What's that song by The Verve? I'm a million different people from one day to the next. I can change.
Mhm, mhm. I was just gonna say, look at Lucia if you want to look at change,
Exactly.
right? New tooth one day, more hair,
Yeah.
more laughing, more pointing, whatever, every minute, change, yeah.
Absolutely. The whole of the universe is in a constant state of change. Why do we think we're something separate from that? We exist within it, from it. Look outside, the seasons are changing. Look up at the sky is constantly changing. Look at the ocean, look at the sea, it's in a constant state of change. Right in front of your eyes. Go down the beach is different each time the tide comes in and goes out. Everything's in a constant state of change. The sun's eternally you take a photograph of the sun now, compare it to 10 minutes time, very different. Take a photograph of the moon and its position from one day to the next, different. The direction the winds come from, the birds that come into your garden, the flowers, what grows, your feelings, your thoughts, what you believe to be true, what you identify with. It's in a constant state of change. Why do we think we are solid, fixed, and incapable of experiencing happiness and joy? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. It's because we hold on to shit. It's because we hold on to it because we think it's true. We think it's real. I can tell Jenny something that I think is true and real, and she'll look at me and go, "What? Are you kidding me?" And she'll tell me something she thinks is true and real, and I'll go, "What? No, that wasn't like that." If it was true or real or fixed, we would both have to see the same reality, surely. Because it would be true, it would be real, and it would be fixed. It just appears so within our minds. And the quicker people catch on to that, the quicker they start to see through this, what we call an illusion of life, an illusion of reality. Rusty and I look at the same food. I look at Rusty's food. I don't want to eat it. Rusty looks at his food. He wants to eat it. Rusty looks at a piece of sheep shit. He wants to eat it. I don't. We live in very, very, very different realities. But we're both living experiential beings on the same planet, in the same boat. I've never once sniffed another dog's arsehole. When? Was that a confession? No, I don't think it was.
No, it was just like, there's no account for taste, Dave. I'm not sure why you haven't done that, but that's just up to you.
Yeah, he sniffed plenty. Did it today. We live in very different realities, every single one of us. That's why Sid spoke about separate realities. We're all living in separate realities. We're all living in separate realities, convinced that our reality is real. When in actual fact, it's as real as the reality going on Julie's screen right now. Comes and goes. The fact of experience and reality never comes and goes. That's eternal. But the form it takes, is something that's in a constant state of flow, change. Embrace the change. The sea's not doing it right when it's out, when it's low tide, and it's not doing it wrong when it's high tide. Sea's not doing it wrong when it's low tide and right when it's high tide. The earth's not getting it wrong when it's having light shone on it 12 hours of the day on one side and 12 hours of the day on the other side. It's darkness. It's not getting it wrong. There are no wrong feelings. There are no wrong thoughts. That would be like saying there's such a thing as a wrong wave on an ocean. There's no wrong waves. There's just our judgment cast upon them. There's no wrong feelings. There's no wrong experience ultimately. If you start to look at this life from a bigger picture rather than a social, political, religious, or egotistical point of view, you start to look at it from a bigger aspect and you start to realize that life truly is an entire experience. But this whole experience of what I call my life is a manifestation of the whole of everything, the same as everybody else's, because everybody is the whole of everything, because we're made of creator. Creator is what we're made of. Like, you can make any model out of plasticine, but it's always going to be made out of plasticine. But you can form that plasticine into any shape. Water will take on any shape you pour it into, but it's still only ever going to be water. With the water. And we can dream up any shape of reality that we wish for ourselves. Problem is, do we dare? Do we dare set ourselves free? What would we be if we were truly free? Who would we be? You'd be yourself. Real self. You'd be loving, you'd be kind. Because you'd realize there's nothing to fight against. All the enemies that exist in this world, wherever they are, whoever they are, to whoever they are a thought creation within the mind of the person who perceives the enemy. That's what war is. It's a thought created from thought. Thoughts that people believe. People go to war with themselves. They go to war with their own thought creations. Because they're afraid of their own thoughts. Because they think they're something substantial and real, greater than a thought. Does anybody want to say anything? This is the most simple thing in the universe. It's so simple we think it must be more complicated, but the complicated, surely that's coming from thought too. Our belief that it has to be more complicated is a thought too. So there we go, we're back to the point, the very point. If we think it's more complicated, it has to be more complicated, we will experience that as a reality and it'll feel real. Yeah, it must be more complicated than this. No, I'm right. It's got to be more complicated, but surely that's coming from thought too, which goes back to the exact point we're trying to make about reality itself. Our reality, our experience, our lives, our feeling states, our behaviors. It's all thought. I'm going to read quickly, because I love it, a little passage. People have heard it before, but I'm just going to go back to it. Little passage about, I'm not a God botherer, but I love the words of Jesus, but this isn't the words of Jesus. It was some people called the Essenes who Jesus spent time with. And the Essenes considered themselves, this is 2,000 years ago, and before that, the Essenes considered themselves to be a separate race of people from the rest of humanity. And they weren't being arrogant. And the way that they differentiated themselves wasn't through skin color or anything like that, or language. It was from what they described as an inner luminescence. And the Essenes had no hierarchy in their culture. Nobody was above anybody. They shared everything. Kindness reigned. And this was a talk that I listened to about the Essenes, and it was by Theodore Nottingham, and it's called The Mystery of the Essenes. You can find it on Spotify. And this was just a bit that I heard right in the middle, bang in the middle. It just stuck out to me like a sore thumb. Thought was therefore considered to be the highest, most powerful force in the universe, as it was seen as the instigator of both feelings and action. The Essenes therefore trained themselves to harness this power in a positive way, knowing that each thought affected the lives of everyone on the planet through the vibrations they sent forth into the collective unconscious. That's how the Essenes lived, with total awareness of the power of their own mind. The mind creates reality. That's why in Buddhism they speak and they say, stop trying to change the world, change yourself and the world will change. It's so true. Change your thoughts, your reality change. When your thoughts change, your reality changes. Impossible, can't possibly figure out a way how to do that. Bang, new thought later, oh, I could do that. Whole new reality is born right there, and then whole new timeline is born. This is a quantum reality we live in, not a Newtonian one. It's collapsed with consciousness. Thought is what consciousness does. Consciousness is the infinity itself. A thinking, a thought, is a potential within the infinite collapsed, creating a reality that we experience and we think is wholeheartedly real and unchangeable. The moment our thoughts change, reality changes. Notice it. Look back at your life. You'll see this is a true point. It's a fundamental truth. Truth will set you free. It really does. But truth can never be found in the potential. It's found in the infinite. When somebody realizes they're not what they think they are, that's where you find truth. And anybody can find it because everybody is already it. They just think they're not. They just believe they're not. Unifying field, God, whatever you want to call it, is what creates everything out of itself. It dreams everything out of itself. Everything is a thought. It says in the Lord's Prayer, on heaven, on earth as it is in heaven, on earth as it is in our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. There you go. All the powers that exist within Source Creator exist within ourselves because we are it. We are that life force, the livingness of life. We can do anything we want in this life. There is no limitation. Nothing. And the more we wake up, the more we find that, because we start to realize the quantum rather than looking at the limitation of the Newtonian. Which is why some people can travel with their minds. Some people can see the future because the future is now. The past is now. There is only the now. That is why people can have all kinds of talents. That's why people can communicate. That's why some people can affect the physical world. I know somebody very close to me who can turn the lights on, but can't turn them off. And can turn the television off, or can't turn it on. I can't remember which way around it is. But they've figured they can move a candle at will, all with the mind. And that's somebody who I know very, very well, and is so valid, it's unbelievable. And we've thought it's all impossible. No, we're magic beings. We're magical beings, and we've limited ourselves with our egos, our sense of separation, and our belief in an identity that doesn't really exist. This is Thomas Merton, a 20th century mentor of Ted Nottingham, who was talking about the Essenes. He said, "The only true joy on earth is to escape from the prison of our own false self, and to be entered by the love into the union, entered by love into the union with the life that dwells and sings within the essence of every creature and in the core of our very own souls." The only true joy on earth is to escape from the prison of our own false self, and to be entered by the love into the union with the life that dwells and sings within the essence of every creature and in the core of our own souls. When we stop looking at what life is doing and we start to realize we are life itself. We are creator. You create reality in every single moment. You're doing it right now, and you've never been taught. Nobody ever taught you how to do it. It's innate. It's got nothing to do with genetics. It's got nothing to do with culture. That's all after the fact. It's all too late. It comes from within ourselves. Ourself not being what we think we are, but a magical force of life, the mystery of life itself. That we all are. That departs upon death. That animates during physical existence. That magical spark of spirit, if you want to call it that. That energy of animation. That thinks. That experiences. That feels. Everything. You, me, all of us. All in the same boat. Just looking out of different views, every single one of us, and every single one of us thinks that our view is real and correct. 7.7 billion human separate realities on the face of planet Earth right this very present moment, and every single one of us thinks that the way we see the world and ourselves is real, and we all see something different. It's all real and it's all false. It appears real, but it's not who and what we are. Does anybody want to say anything? Jen's asked, could we do 5 minutes? For those who don't always come on these calls, we like to do 5 minutes of just sitting quietly. Let me just read the Essenes thing one more time. Thought was therefore considered to be the highest, most powerful force in the universe. Think about it. It really is. It's where all our inventions come from. It's where all our action comes from, as well. So they say, highest, most powerful force in the universe, as it was seen as both the instigator of feeling and action. The Essenes, therefore, trained themselves to harness this power in a positive way, knowing that each thought affected the lives of everyone on the planet. They're all in the same boat. Through the vibrations they sent forth into the collective unconscious. This is a quantum universe. It's a quantum world. It's a quantum existence. Our thoughts have power. They create reality. If we learn to channel good thoughts, we help to create a more beautiful world. Doesn't mean we need to beat ourselves up for having negative ones. No, certainly not. That's just creating more negative thoughts. Accept we're going to do it from time to time. We all do. Nothing to be afraid of. But just for 5 minutes, if we can just sit quietly. Anybody who doesn't want to do it, you're free to leave. But those that are happy to, just 5 minutes of just sitting quietly and just sending love out to this world, thinking kindly of people, thinking kindly of ourselves for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes, just going to, if those that wish to, please do it. High vibration always cancels out low vibration. Ask a physicist. Cool. Jenny, you going to time, love? Has anybody got a 5 minute timer? And a 5 minute timer, a timer. Julie will have, she's so organized. Top.
Yeah, do you want me to time it? I've done it. Right.
Done it. What's your name, mate? Sorry.
Hi, I'm Daniel.
Dan.
I'm Daniel, yeah.
God, lovely to meet you, man. Thanks so much for joining us.
Do you want me to restart it?
Yeah, start it. You tell us when to go. This is leaving you time. Thanks, buddy.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
I'll say something.
That's it. No, okay, yeah. I feel like I'm disrupted.
Cheers, Daniel, lad.
Peace.
It's all an act, everyone. It's all an act. Thank you all so much for being here. Daniel, lovely to meet you, man.
You too.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Ali, thanks so much, love. Caroline, thank you so much. Leela, thanks so much, sweetheart. I knew you know you're not feeling so good today, so thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Wen, thanks so much, love.
Thank you.
See you next Monday if you can make it. Hang
Oh,
on,
don't you mean Friday, Saturday?
we've got the retreat, haven't we? Saturday.
Saturday.
Oh, I love Julie. She's the best. Yeah, Saturday, retreat Saturday. Information's at freedomthinking.co.uk. All the information's on there. Freedom Thinking. Type in Freedom Thinking, top one. Go in there. It's on the event section. Loads of love, everyone. Thank you all for joining.
Saturday. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.